Hey folks, so I just wanted to record a quick little lecture, preparatory lecture before I actually get into the lecture on fascism, which I owe you from the week before. We had to stop our face-to-face meetings. Um, I guess I just wanted to explain a little bit about why I'm continuing the class and how I see kind of all of this fitting together, our class and our current pandemic moment. Um, so I guess the thing that I first wanted to say is that I recognize that this is a really difficult time for all of us. I personally know now two people who are infected, and one of them, their father, is most likely going to die. That's the information that we have at the moment. I'm sure many of you are in similar circumstances, and so let me just say that if you need additional assistance from me or extensions or whatever, I'm open to all of that. Okay, I know this is a rough time. Um, that said, I wanted this class to still be a continuing presence um, for myself. I guess I could say maybe even selfishly, but also I think that it serves a purpose in keeping to a kind of not normal schedule, but at least trying to continue on with some of our life as it was, before the pandemic. And I think this class can actually help going forward. Here's what I mean. So, in addition to people, obviously lots of experts talking about trying to keep to some kind of a routine in the pandemic, and that I hope that maybe doing a little bit of additional work in this class. Oh, and I should say I've reduced the reading load as you would have seen in the email that I've sent you. So I understand that we have to have a little different expectations going forward. Um, but just to speak specifically to what this class is about, um, I don't mean to uh, celebrate myself being prophetic or anything like that. But the final assignment that I have had for this class for the last number of years has just strangely enough really been a kind of a kind of prophecy for what we are going through now. And so it just takes a little bit of tweaking to apply what I had previously wanted in the final assignment to what we have now. Here's what I mean. Um, really in this class, we've been talking about disasters in films, right? 28 Days Later, um, pandemic. And if you recall V for Vendetta, how does V for Vendetta begin? Well, not the actual movie, how it begins, but what started the crisis that led to the rise of a dictatorship? Well, it's a pandemic. It's an epidemic. It's one that is probably created, and I'm not making any claims about that now. But we've been kind of preparing for this sort of thing through the videos that we've been watching, the movies that we've been watching, without really knowing it. And certainly, I didn't know that anything like this was coming up. But we've been in this kind of mental space of thinking about epidemics and kind of political disasters and what happens and what causes them and how to respond to them. And so we've been preparing for a moment of crisis, kind of without really realizing it. So so I hope we can kind of use what we've already seen in the films to really help us think about um, the political response today, to think about not just what we want our governments to do, but what we also expect of ourselves and of each other. And the texts in our textbook across these varying ideologies really do speak to this. Um, so just then to go forward to the assignment that I've used in the past, I have asked students to imagine, and it was a sci-fi scenario. I asked students to imagine that they were 100 or 200 years in the future. I don't remember what I normally did, but that they were living in a kind of new Canada where there had been a global epidemics, climate change, wars, and that now the ocean had actually risen to Niagara Falls, and so Niagara Falls was now actually on the Atlantic Ocean. And so they were writing in this post-apocalyptic scenario where they were trying to rebuild civilization, and I asked the students in the class to diagnose what destroyed the old civilization. That was kind of the first part, and then the second part was, okay, and then how are we going to go forward and rebuild our civilization? Um, you know, it's I mean, it maybe goes a little too far to say that that's the actual situation that we're in. Society hasn't collapsed, and I'm not trying to be a Cassandra about this and say that, civilization is going to collapse. But this is a really serious crisis, more serious than anything that I have seen in my lifetime, and I've lived through a few moments of crisis. So so I'm just going to convert, and I mean, I'll send you all the details later, but I'm just converting that final assignment to basically let's look at what happened with the COVID crisis, and you'll have a take-home final that's due, as you saw in the email that I sent earlier. You have a take-home final that's due on April 13th, and it's basically going to be using our texts to address how the COVID crisis came about, from the perspective of these various ideologies and movies, and then what should be done in the wake of it. How should we reorganize our political societies, in the wake of this pandemic. So, it's really all right there for us. And I'm not celebrating, this crisis, but I guess I'm saying we've been kind of preparing for it without really recognizing it. And so, I think it will actually be useful for you. At least I really hope it will be useful for you to use our texts and to think about how we got in this situation and where we should go forward. And to that end, so there are just 2 additional movies. The syllabus, one is Get Out, that's more about the kind of liberation section of the syllabus, and so I'm still asking students to watch that, and it's just a great film. So if you haven't seen it, good while you're at home to do it, to watch it. And then the final film is also, again, really speaking to this moment. It's Princess Mononoke. It's available if you don't already have it. It's available for purchase or rent on YouTube, and also I think maybe on Google Play. And it's an anime film, and it's about an ecological catastrophe, but it's about an ecological catastrophe in which humans, through trying to dominate nature, actually incur nature's wrath, and then there's this kind of catastrophe that comes and wipes out this area that the film is about. And again, I think it's not too crazy to say that this also speaks really quite pointedly to our situation. So, and you'll be able to write on that film on the final if you so choose. There will be you'll have a lot of choice in terms of what you write for the take-home final. Okay, so I'm going to cut this discussion. I'm going to close this discussion at the moment. I guess I just wanted to say a final word to say that, as I said, that this is a moment, a crisis like any that I have seen in my life. And, I'm 50, so, I don't go back to World War II or the Depression, but this is a crazy time. And I hope that as you're kind of processing this as the new normal, and it all just seems surreal and just crazy, I hope that you can start to think about some past crises and the time of the so-called greatest generation, and how they endured the Great Depression and how they endured World War II, and previous generations have really had these defining struggles, and that those struggles were difficult, but they called forth really amazing nobility, sacrifice, self-sacrifice in people. I mean, our medical professionals are engaged in hopefully not self-sacrifice, but are certainly putting their lives on the line for us right now. So I guess I hope that maybe you can take a moment to think about this crisis as an opportunity for you. Again, not in any kind of shallow way, and I'm not celebrating this in any way, but I guess I'm saying this is a time that we can all rise to meet the challenge, right? So in Princess Mononoke, one of the characters says, you know, you can't escape your fate, but you can hope to rise to meet your fate. And this is really the moment that we are in, right? We can rise to meet our fate, and we can come together to face this challenge. And, you know, I would just say it's not crazy to think about yourself as a potential hero, to think about yourself as really being capable of doing amazing things. And I don't know what any of those things would be, but you know, this is really a time for all of us to look inside and to think about what is important to us. And maybe we can come through as previous generations have come through their time of struggle. Maybe you're going to be able to come through this, you know, changed and hopefully with a deeper appreciation for what you value, who you are, who you want to be, and who you want us to all be together. Okay, so I'm going to close this now. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and you will see more from me shortly. Ciao.